David never imagined that taking a bullet for a stranger would change his life forever. One moment of courage in a parking garage. One desperate widow who needed protection. One marriage proposal the next morning that would transform a struggling single father into the husband and father of his dreams. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. The gunshot echoed through the parking garage as David Thompson collapsed to the cold concrete floor, his security guard uniform soaked with blood. Above him, Sophia Winters knelt in her elegant black dress, pressing her designer scarf against the wound in his shoulder. "Stay with me," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Please don't leave me." David looked up at the woman he had just saved, her perfectly styled blonde hair now disheveled, tears streaming down her face. "Your son, is he safe?" Sophia glanced back at 8-year-old Michael, who was hiding behind a car just as David had told him to do when the gunman appeared. "He's safe because of you." 20 minutes earlier, David had been finishing his night shift at the upscale shopping center where Sophia often brought Michael for dinner and shopping. David knew them by sight, the beautiful widow and her quiet son who always said please and thank you. What David didn't know was that Sophia's late husband had left behind dangerous enemies, and tonight they had finally found her. "Mrs. Winters," the gunman had called out as Sophia and Michael walked to their car. "You cost my family everything. Time to pay." David didn't hesitate. He tackled the gunman just as the trigger was pulled, taking the bullet meant for Sophia. The attacker fled when he heard sirens approaching, leaving David bleeding on the ground. Now, as paramedics worked to stabilize David, Sophia held his hand tightly. "I'm not leaving you," she promised. "I'm going to take care of you." David managed a weak smile. "You don't owe me anything, ma'am. I was just doing my job." "No," Sophia said firmly. "You saved my life and my son's life. You're family now." At the hospital, while David was in surgery, Sophia sat in the waiting room with Michael curled up in her lap. The boy had been quiet since the shooting, clinging to his mother with unusual intensity. "Mama," Michael whispered. "Is Mr. David going to be okay?" Sophia stroked her son's dark hair, so much like his father's. "I hope so, sweetheart. He's very brave. He saved us, didn't he?" "Yes, baby. He saved us." Michael was quiet for a moment. "I wish he could stay with us, so the bad men can't come back." Sophia's heart ached. Michael had been having nightmares for months, ever since someone had broken into their house looking for something his father had supposedly hidden. Tonight's attack proved that the danger was far from over. "Maybe he can stay with us," Sophia said softly, an idea beginning to form in her mind. "Would you like that?" Michael nodded eagerly. "Could he be my new daddy?" Sophia's breath caught. Michael's father had died in a car accident 2 years ago, and her son had been asking for a father figure ever since. "We'll see, sweetheart. We'll see." When David woke up 6 hours later, the first thing he saw was Sophia sitting beside his hospital bed, still in her torn dress from the night before. Michael was asleep in the chair next to her. "How long have you been here?" David asked, his voice hoarse from the anesthesia. "All night. I promised I wouldn't leave you." David tried to sit up and winced at the pain in his shoulder. "You should go home. Get some rest." "I'm fine now." "No, you're not fine. You nearly died because of me." Sophia leaned forward. "David, I need to ask you something important." "Okay." "The people who tried to hurt us last night, they're not going to stop. My husband left behind some complicated business arrangements, and there are people who think I have something they want." David frowned. "What kind of business arrangements?" Sophia looked uncomfortable. "Let's just say my husband wasn't always careful about who he did business with. Now they think I have access to money or information that belongs to them. So you're in real danger." "We both are. Michael and I." Sophia's voice trembled. "I've hired private security, but it's not enough. These people are persistent." David studied her face, seeing the fear she was trying to hide. "What are you asking me, Sophia?" "I have a proposition for you. A way to protect both of us and give our children the stability they need." "Our children?" Sophia smiled slightly. "You have a daughter, don't you?" "Am I age 10? I've done my research." David felt a chill. How much did she know about his life? "Yes, I have a daughter. And you're raising her alone since your wife passed away last year." David's jaw tightened. "What's your point?" "My point is that we both have children we need to protect. We both have enemies now, thanks to last night. And we both need help." "I still don't understand what you're asking." Sophia took a deep breath. "Marry me, David." David stared at her, certain he had heard wrong. "What?" "A marriage of protection. If you're my husband, you can legally be involved in my security decisions. You can live in my house, help protect Michael, and I can help protect Emma. My lawyers think it's the best way to ensure everyone's safety. Sophia, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. She reached for his hand. David, those men who tried to kill me last night? They know about Emma now. They know she's your daughter. If they can't get to me directly, they might try to use her to get to you and then to me. David's blood ran cold. They know about Emma? My security team intercepted communications this morning. They're planning to grab her from school tomorrow. David tried to get out of bed, ignoring the searing pain in his shoulder. I have to get to her. She's safe, Sophia said quickly, gently pushing him back down. I've already sent my security team to pick her up from school. She's at my house right now playing with Michael. David's eyes filled with angry tears. You had no right. I had every right. You saved my life, which means your life is connected to mine now. That includes your daughter. Sophia's voice softened. David, I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to save you. David closed his eyes, overwhelmed by the situation. His quiet life as a security guard had been turned upside down in one night. This is insane. I know it sounds crazy, but think about it logically. Together, we have resources to protect our children that neither of us has alone. My money, your security skills, combined households with professional protection. And what do you get out of this arrangement? Sophia was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, a chance at a real family again. Michael needs a father figure, and you're the bravest man I've ever met. Emma needs a mother's love, and I have so much love to give. David looked at her carefully. This isn't just about protection, is it? No, Sophia admitted. It's not. I care about you, David. I have for months, watching you work, seeing how kind you are to everyone you meet. Last night just gave me the courage to do something about it. That evening, against doctor's orders, David checked himself out of the hospital. Sophia drove him to her mansion in the hills, where he found Emma and Michael building a fort in the massive living room. Daddy. Emma ran to him, careful not to hit his injured shoulder. Are you okay? Mrs. Winters said you were hurt protecting her. David hugged his daughter tightly with his good arm. I'm okay, princess. Just a little sore. Can we really stay here tonight? Emma asked excitedly. This house is like a palace. David looked around the opulent room with its crystal chandeliers and priceless artwork. It was a far cry from their small apartment across town. Just for tonight, maybe? Actually, Sophia said, joining them with Michael at her side, I was hoping you might stay longer than that. Emma looked at her father hopefully. Can we, Daddy? Please? David saw the hope in both children's eyes and felt his resistance wavering. We need to talk about this more. Of course. But for now, why don't we have dinner? I had my chef prepare something special. Over dinner in Sophia's elegant dining room, David watched as the four of them fell into easy conversation. Emma, who had been quiet and withdrawn since her mother's death, was laughing and chatting with Michael. Sophia treated both children with equal attention and affection. Mr. David, Michael said as they finished dessert, are you going to be my new daddy? David nearly choked on his wine. Michael. I asked him to be, Sophia said calmly. Would that be okay with you? Michael nodded enthusiastically. And Emma could be my sister. Emma looked at David with wide eyes. Really, Daddy? Could we be a family? David felt trapped by the innocent hopes of both children. It's complicated, sweetheart. Why is it complicated? Emma asked. Don't you like Mrs. Winters? David glanced at Sophia, who was watching him with an unreadable expression. I like her very much. And she likes you, don't you, Mrs. Winters? Emma continued. Very much, Sophia confirmed. Then why can't we be a family? David struggled to find words that would make sense to a 10-year-old. Sometimes grown-ups need time to figure things out. After dinner, while the children watched a movie in the family room, David and Sophia walked out to the garden behind her house. They make it sound so simple, David said, looking back at the house where their children were laughing together. Maybe it is that simple, Sophia replied. Maybe we're the ones making it complicated. David turned to face her. Sophia, I appreciate what you're trying to do. But I can't marry someone just for protection or convenience. I've been married before for love. Real love. I can't settle for less than that. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. What makes you think it would be settling? Because you don't really know me. You know I'm brave, you know I'm a good father. But you don't know that I snore or that I leave dishes in the sink sometimes, or that I get grumpy when I'm tired. Sophia laughed through her tears. I know you work 2 jobs to support your daughter. I know you volunteer at the children's hospital on weekends. I know you always hold the elevator for people even when you're running late. David stared at her. How do you know all that? Because I've been watching you for 6 months, David. Not in a creepy way, she added quickly. But I eat at that shopping center 3 times a week. I see how you interact with people. I see how much you love Emma when you pick her up from the after-school program. You've been watching me for 6 months? Sophia blushed. I've had a crush on you for 6 months. I just never had the nerve to do anything about it. David felt his world shift slightly. A crush. A massive, embarrassing crush on the sweet security guard who always smiles at my son and asks about his day. They stood in the garden looking at each other, both processing this new information. So this marriage proposal, David said slowly, it's not entirely about protection. Not entirely, no. Though the protection aspect is very real. David, those men are still out there. They will come after us again. David nodded grimly. Then we need to be smart about this. Does that mean you're considering it? David looked back at the house where Emma was giggling at something Michael had said. His daughter was happier than she had been in over a year. I'm considering it. But I have conditions. Name them. First, this has to be real. Not just a business arrangement. If we're going to be married, we need to actually try to build something together. Sophia's heart leaped. I want that more than anything. Second, we take this slow with the kids. They're already excited about the idea, but we need to make sure this is right before we make any permanent commitments. Agreed. Though I should warn you, Michael has already started calling you Dad in his head. David smiled despite his nervousness. And third, if this doesn't work out, we handle it like adults. No drama, no using the kids as weapons. It's going to work out, Sophia said confidently. How can you be so sure? Sophia stepped closer to him. Because I'm already falling in love with you, David Thompson. And I think maybe you might be falling for me too. Before David could respond, Sophia kissed him softly. It was gentle and sweet, full of hope and promise. When they broke apart, David rested his forehead against hers. This is crazy. The best things usually are. The next morning, David woke up in one of Sophia's guest bedrooms to the sound of children's laughter from downstairs. His shoulder was still sore, but his heart felt lighter than it had in months. He found Sophia in the kitchen making pancakes while Emma and Michael set the table together. Good morning, Sophia said, smiling at him over her shoulder. How did you sleep? Better than I have in a long time. Emma ran to him for a careful hug. Daddy, look. Mrs. Winters is making pancakes shaped like animals. I can see that, Princess. David looked at the elaborate breakfast spread. This is very fancy for a Wednesday morning. Every morning should be special, Sophia said. Especially when you're with people you care about. After breakfast, while the children got ready for school, Sophia pulled David aside. I need to tell you something, she said seriously. David felt his stomach drop. What's wrong? My lawyer called this morning. There's been another development with the people who are after me. They've escalated their threats. What kind of escalation? They've given me 48 hours to turn over my husband's business files, or they're going to hurt the children. David's face went pale. Both children? Both children. Which means we can't wait to make this official. We need to get married today. Today. My lawyer has arranged for a private ceremony this afternoon. Just us, the kids, and a few witnesses. Nothing fancy, but it will be legal and official. David ran his hand through his hair. Sophia, this is moving so fast. I know. But we don't have a choice. Once we're married, my security team can legally protect Emma too. Right now, they have no authority over her. David looked toward the stairs where he could hear Emma and Michael laughing as they got ready for school. What do we tell them? The truth. That we care about each other and want to be a family. That afternoon, David found himself standing in Sophia's living room wearing a suit she had bought for him that morning, watching as Emma walked down the makeshift aisle in a new dress, carrying a bouquet of flowers from the garden. Michael stood beside him as his best man, while Sophia's assistant served as her maid of honor. A judge who owed Sophia a favor had agreed to perform the ceremony on short notice. When Sophia appeared at the top of the stairs in a simple cream-colored dress, David's breath caught. She was beautiful, but more than that, she was looking at him like he was her whole world. As she walked toward him, David realized that somewhere between the shooting and this moment, he had started to fall in love with her too. Hi, Sophia whispered when she reached him. Hi, David whispered back. You look beautiful. So do you. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt. When they exchanged vows, both children stood between them, symbolizing that this marriage was about all four of them becoming a family. "I promise to love and protect you and Michael for the rest of my life," David said, his voice steady despite his nervousness. "I promise to love and cherish you and Emma always," Sophia replied, tears of joy in her eyes. When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, both children cheered, and David kissed his new wife for the second time, this time as her husband. "We're really married now," Sophia said against his lips. "We really are," David agreed. That night, after the children were asleep, David and Sophia sat in her study going over security protocols with her team. The threats were real and immediate, but now they could face them together as a united family. "Mrs. Thompson," the head of security said, still adjusting to Sophia's new name, "we'll have teams stationed around the house 24/7. No one gets in or out without our knowledge." David looked at his new wife, still getting used to the sound of her being called Mrs. Thompson. "How long do you think we'll need this level of security?" "Until we can neutralize the threat permanently," Sophia replied. "My husband left behind some information that these people want. Once I turn it over to the FBI, hopefully this will all be over. And if it doesn't end?" Sophia reached for David's hand. "Then we keep fighting. Together." Later, as they got ready for bed in separate rooms, they had agreed to take the physical aspect of their relationship slowly. Sophia knocked on David's door. "Come in," he called. Sophia peeked her head inside. "I just wanted to say thank you." "For what?" "For marrying me. For taking a chance on us." David sat on the edge of the bed and looked at his new wife. "Sophia, can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Are you scared?" "About all of this?" Sophia came into the room and sat beside him. "Terrified. Not about the threats from my husband's enemies. I can handle that. I'm scared about us. About whether this can really work. What if it doesn't? Then at least we'll have tried. And our children will have had a taste of what a real family feels like." David reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "I think it's going to work." "What makes you so sure?" "Because when I look at you, I don't see a millionaire widow who married me for protection. I see the woman who held my hand in the hospital. I see the mother who makes animal-shaped pancakes. I see someone I could spend my life loving." Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "Really? Really?" This time, when they kissed, it was deeper and more passionate, full of the promise of what they could build together. 3 months later, the threats against their family had been neutralized. Sophia had turned over her husband's files to the FBI, leading to the arrest of several dangerous criminals. The children had adjusted beautifully to their new blended family, and David had settled into his role as both husband and father. "David," Sophia said one morning over breakfast, "I have something to tell you." Emma and Michael looked up from their cereal, curious. "What's that?" David asked. Sophia smiled nervously. "I'm pregnant." The room went silent for a moment. Then Emma squealed with delight. "Really? We're going to have a baby?" Michael jumped up from his chair. "I'm going to be a big brother." David stared at his wife in shock. "Are you serious?" Sophia nodded, tears of joy streaming down her face. "The doctor confirmed it yesterday. Are you happy?" David stood up and pulled Sophia into his arms, spinning her around as the children cheered and danced around them. "I'm more than happy," he said, setting her down gently. "I'm amazed by how perfect our life has become. Even though it all started with you taking a bullet for a stranger?" David cupped her face in his hands. "Especially because it started that way. That bullet brought me the love of my life and gave our children the family they deserved." As they stood in their kitchen, surrounded by the laughter of their children and the promise of a new baby on the way, David reflected on how dramatically his life had changed. A year ago, he had been a struggling single father working multiple jobs just to make ends meet. Now he was married to an incredible woman, father to 3 children, and living in a house filled with love and laughter. "I love you, Mrs. Thompson," he whispered against Sophia's ear. "I love you too, Mr. Thompson," she whispered back. "Forever and always." That evening, after the children were in bed and they had called their friends and family to share the news about the baby, David and Sophia sat on their back patio watching the stars come out. "Do you ever think about that night in the parking garage?" Sophia asked, curled up against David's side. "Every day," David replied. "But not the scary parts. I think about the moment I realized I would do anything to protect you and Michael. That's when I knew I was already falling in love with you. I knew I loved you when you asked about Michael even while you were bleeding on the ground. You cared more about a child's safety than your own life." They sat in comfortable silence, both lost in their own thoughts about the journey that had brought them to this moment. "David?" Sophia said suddenly. "Yeah. When people ask us how we met, what are we going to tell them?" David chuckled. "The truth. That I took a bullet for a beautiful stranger, and she married me the next day to keep our family safe. And they'll think we're crazy. They'll think we're crazy in love. Which we are." Sophia smiled and snuggled closer to her husband. "The next morning when I introduced you as my husband to the security team, remember how shocked they were? They thought you had lost your mind. Maybe I had. But it was the best decision I ever made." David kissed the top of Sophia's head. "Mine too." 6 months later, David stood in the hospital room holding his newborn daughter, little Sarah Thompson, named after David's late wife who had brought Emma into the world. Sophia lay in the hospital bed, exhausted but glowing with happiness as she watched her husband bond with their baby. "She's perfect," David whispered, tears streaming down his face. "Absolutely perfect." Emma and Michael pressed close to see their new sister, both of them amazed by how tiny she was. "Can I hold her?" Emma asked quietly. David carefully placed the baby in Emma's arms, making sure she was supporting the head properly. "There you go, big sister." "Hi, Sarah," Emma whispered to the baby. "I'm your sister Emma, and this is your brother Michael. We're going to take such good care of you." Michael gently touched the baby's tiny hand. "She has Mama Sophia's nose but Daddy David's eyes." Sophia's heart swelled at hearing Michael call David, Daddy David, so naturally. The children had adapted to their blended family better than anyone could have hoped. "She's going to be so spoiled," Sophia laughed. "With 2 big siblings and 2 parents who already love her so much." David sat on the edge of the hospital bed and leaned down to kiss his wife. "Thank you for giving me another daughter." "Thank you for giving me a son and a daughter I never thought I'd have," Sophia replied, looking at Emma who was still carefully holding the baby. 2 years later, the Thompson family had settled into a beautiful routine. David had been promoted to head of security for Sophia's company, allowing him to work closely with his wife while still providing protection for their family. The threats from Sophia's past had been completely eliminated, but David's skills had proven invaluable in his new corporate role. Emma, now 12, was thriving in her new school and had become fiercely protective of both her younger siblings. Michael, 10, had blossomed from a quiet, worried child into a confident boy who loved having a father figure to look up to. Little Sarah, now 2 years old, was the light of everyone's life. She had David's gentle nature but Sophia's determination, and she ruled the household with her infectious laughter and charming smile. "Daddy? Daddy?" Sarah ran into David's home office, her pigtails bouncing as she climbed onto his lap. "Play with me." David saved his work and closed his laptop. "What do you want to play, princess?" "Tea party with Emma and Michael." David looked at his 2 older children who were setting up an elaborate tea party in the living room, complete with fancy china that Sophia had bought specifically for these occasions. "Well, I suppose I can't refuse an invitation from such a beautiful lady," David said, tickling Sarah until she giggled. As they all sat around the tiny tea table, David marveled at how normal this all felt. These children, this house, this life, it had all come from one split-second decision to protect a stranger and her child. "David," Sophia said that evening as they tucked Sarah into bed together, "do you ever regret it? Taking that bullet, marrying me so quickly, changing your whole life overnight?" David looked around Sarah's room with its hand-painted murals and expensive toys, then at his wife who was reading their daughter a bedtime story. "The only thing I regret is that it took a bullet for us to meet. I wish I had been brave enough to talk to you months earlier when I first noticed how beautiful you were." Sophia smiled and finished reading the story, then kissed Sarah goodnight. As they walked to their own bedroom, she took David's hand. "I have something to tell you," she said with a familiar mischievous smile. David's heart skipped a beat. "Please tell me you're not pregnant again. I don't think I can handle 4 kids. Sophia laughed. "No, not pregnant. But I am thinking about expanding our family in a different way." "What do you mean?" Sophia pulled out her phone and showed David a picture of 2 young brothers at the local foster care center. "These are the Martinez boys, ages 6 and 8. They've been in the system for 2 years since their parents died in a car accident. No one wants to adopt siblings together." David looked at the photo of 2 little boys who reminded him of Michael when they first met, scared, sad but still hopeful. "Sophia, I know it sounds crazy. We already have 3 children. But we have so much love to give and they need a family." David studied the photo more carefully. The older boy was clearly protecting his younger brother, just like Emma had always protected Michael and Sarah. What are their names? Carlos and Diego. Carlos is 8 and Diego is 6. They speak English and Spanish, and they're both honor roll students despite everything they've been through. David sat on their bed still looking at the photo. 5 kids, Sophia. Are we crazy enough to have 5 kids? We were crazy enough to get married 24 hours after meeting. We were crazy enough to blend 2 families overnight. We were crazy enough to have a baby in our first year of marriage. Sophia sat beside him. Maybe crazy is just who we are. David thought about Emma, who had thrived since gaining siblings. He thought about Michael, who had become confident and happy with a father figure. He thought about little Sarah, who would grow up surrounded by love and security. When can we meet them? He asked. Sophia's face lit up with joy. Really? You want to meet them? If they're going to be our sons, we should probably get to know them first. 2 weeks later, Carlos and Diego Martinez moved into the Thompson house. The adjustment wasn't easy. Both boys had trust issues, and Carlos, the older brother, was fiercely protective of Diego and suspicious of adults who promised to take care of them. But slowly, with patience and love, the boys began to settle in. Emma immediately took them under her wing, helping them with homework and showing them around their new school. Michael was thrilled to finally be a big brother to someone. And Sarah, with her innocent charm, quickly won over both boys with her hugs and giggles. "Papa David," Diego said one night as David tucked him into bed, "are you really going to keep us forever?" David's heart broke at the vulnerability in the 6-year-old's voice. "Forever and always, Mijo. You and Carlos are our sons now. Nothing will ever change that. Even if we're bad sometimes?" David sat on the edge of Diego's bed. "Diego, all kids are bad sometimes. Emma gets in trouble, Michael gets in trouble, even little Sarah gets in trouble. But we don't stop loving them when they make mistakes. That's what families do, they love each other no matter what." Carlos, who had been pretending to sleep in the next bed, spoke up quietly. "What if our real parents come back?" David looked at the 8-year-old who carried so much responsibility for his little brother. "Carlos, your real parents are in heaven watching over you. They would want you to be happy and safe with a family who loves you. We're not trying to replace them, we're just trying to give you the love they would want you to have." Carlos was quiet for a moment. "Can I still remember them?" "Of course. We'll help you remember them. We can make a photo album of all your memories and you can tell Sarah and Emma and Michael stories about them. And they would be okay with us calling you Papa and Mama Sophia our parents?" David felt tears prick his eyes. "I think they would be very happy knowing you found a family who loves you as much as they did." 1 year after the adoption was finalized, the Thompson family gathered in their living room for family game night. David looked around at his 5 children, Emma, now 13 and already talking about high school, Michael, 11 and captain of his soccer team, Carlos, 9 and thriving in his new school, Diego, 7 and the family comedian, and little Sarah, 3 and the beloved baby sister to everyone. Sophia caught him staring and smiled. "Penny for your thoughts, husband." "Just counting my blessings," David replied. 6 years ago, I was a single father struggling to make ends meet. Now I have a wife I adore and 5 incredible children. Don't forget the dog, Emma said, pointing to the golden retriever puppy they had adopted last month. And the cat, Michael added, gesturing to the kitten that Sarah had insisted they rescue from the animal shelter. And the fish, Carlos chimed in, referring to the aquarium he and Diego had begged for. David laughed. How could I forget our zoo? Sophia curled up next to her husband on the couch. Any regrets about taking that bullet now? David looked at his wife, then at their children who were arguing about which board game to play, then at the pets scattered around the room. Not a single one. That bullet gave me everything I never knew I wanted. Even when the kids are driving us crazy? Sophia asked as Sarah and Diego started a tickle fight that quickly involved all 5 children. Especially then, David said, pulling Sophia closer. This chaos, this noise, this beautiful mess. It's everything I dreamed of when I was lonely in my little apartment with just Emma. Later that night, after all 5 children had been tucked into bed, some more willingly than others, David and Sophia sat in their bedroom going over the family calendar for the next week. Soccer practice for Michael, dance recital for Emma, parent-teacher conferences for Carlos and Diego, and Sarah's doctor appointment. Sophia read off the list. Oh, and don't forget the family portrait session on Saturday. David groaned playfully. Getting all 5 kids to sit still and smile at the same time? That's going to be interesting. It'll be worth it. I want to capture this moment in our lives when everyone is still young enough to want to be in a family photo. David kissed his wife's temple. I love our crazy life. Even when Carlos and Diego track mud through the house? Even then. Even when Emma rolls her eyes at everything we say? Especially then. It means she's becoming her own person. Even when Michael tries to bring home every stray animal in the neighborhood? That just means he has a big heart like his mother. Even when Sarah throws tantrums in the grocery store? She's 3. It's her job to throw tantrums. Sophia smiled and snuggled closer to her husband. I love you, David Thompson. I love you too, Sophia Thompson. More than I ever thought possible. As they drifted off to sleep, David reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. A single act of courage had led to the greatest love story of his life and the family he had always dreamed of but never thought he could have. The bullet scar on his shoulder had faded to a thin line, barely visible anymore. But the love that had grown from that moment of violence continued to multiply with each passing day, each shared laugh, each family dinner, each bedtime story. Tomorrow would bring new adventures with their 5 children, homework help, soccer games, dance recitals, scraped knees to kiss, and teenage attitudes to navigate. There would be challenges and chaos, laughter and tears, ordinary moments and extraordinary memories. But they would face it all together as a family built from courage, sealed with love, and strengthened by the unbreakable bonds they had chosen to create. The millionaire widow and the security guard who had saved her life had become so much more than either of them had ever imagined possible. They had become parents, partners, and proof that sometimes the most unexpected moments create the most beautiful families. And it all started with a single dad who took a bullet for a stranger and the woman who promised him forever the very next day. The bullet that made them family had healed long ago, but the love it created would last for all the days of their lives together.